There's a certain kind of silence that lives behind every photo we post. The kind that lingers right before we hit share. That small hesitation, a flicker of doubt, a whisper that says, "Do I really want them to see this?" Before we silence it with a caption and let the algorithm take the wheel. We tell ourselves it's just another post, just another update. But deep down, it's not just about showing what happened. It's about being seen while it happens. Because sometimes, when life starts to feel a little too quiet, the internet becomes the only place we can hear ourselves exist. You know that feeling, right? When you're in the middle of something beautiful, the sunset, the laughter, the moment, and before you even realize it, your hand's already reaching for the phone. It's not just habit, it's muscle memory. Like a reflex built from years of trying to prove that our lives are actually happening. And that's where it begins. The psychology of people who post everything online. Not from arrogance, not from vanity, but from this quiet ache to matter somewhere. Because here's the truth. Most people who post everything aren't showing off. They're trying to remember who they are. When you scroll through someone's feed, all the smiles, vacations, meals, sunsets, it's easy to forget that what you're seeing isn't the whole story. You're looking at the highlight reel of someone who might be falling apart off screen. Someone who keeps uploading because silence feels too heavy. Because posting becomes a kind of breathing. A way to prove, even for a second, that they're still here. Psychologists call this a validation loop. You post something, you get likes. Your brain releases dopamine. You feel seen, appreciated, acknowledged. But then it fades. And to feel it again, you have to post again. It's not vanity, it's survival. In a world that moves faster than our emotions can catch up, being seen becomes a substitute for being understood. And that's why it's so easy to mistake attention for affection. Sometimes, it's not that people want to show off their happiness. They just want someone to witness it. Because what's the point of joy if no one ever sees it? Posting everything online is like keeping a digital diary. Except instead of privacy, you trade it for applause. You document your life in pixels, hoping one of them will finally capture what you're feeling inside. And that's the trap. You start to live for the documentation. You go to a cafe not to enjoy it, but to capture the aesthetic. You smile not because you're happy, but because your front camera's on. It's not that the moment isn't real. It's just that it's not yours anymore once it's uploaded. We build digital versions of ourselves, curated, edited, filtered, until the line between who we are and what we show starts to blur. And slowly, the online version becomes the one we protect most. Because that version doesn't cry. That version doesn't fail. That version never gets ignored. It's safe, controlled, lovable. And that's the irony. The more we share, the less we actually show. There's a certain loneliness that hides inside oversharing. It's like screaming into a crowd and hoping one person actually listens. You post, you refresh, you wait. Not just for numbers, but for connection. Because deep down, every post is a small emotional gamble. Will someone see me? Will they care? Will they notice if I disappear? And that right there, that's what psychologists call external validation dependency. It's when your sense of worth starts to rely on how others respond to you. Likes become love. Comments become comfort. You start chasing feedback instead of peace. But no matter how much attention you get, it never fully fills you. Because it's borrowed energy. The kind that fades the second the screen goes dark. Sometimes, people who post everything are the ones who never felt seen growing up. Maybe they had parents who were too busy. too distracted, too critical. Maybe they learned early that love had to be earned through performance, achievement, perfection. So now they perform their life online, subconsciously recreating the same dynamic. Look at me, notice me, approve of me, and it's not their fault. It's just the only language their inner child ever learned. Every photo becomes a little, see me, please. Every story, a quiet, I'm still here. Because when no one really saw the real you, posting becomes a way to rebuild the version of yourself that deserved to be seen all along. There's also another layer to it, the need for control. When your emotions or life feel chaotic, posting gives you structure. You decide what to show, when to show it, and how it's framed. It gives the illusion of order in a world that constantly feels unpredictable. You can't control who leaves, who stays, or how people treat you. But you can control what they see of you. That's power. And sometimes it's the only power some people have left. So they post. Not because they're trying to impress, but because it helps them survive. The internet is strange, isn't it? It makes you feel both connected and isolated at the same time. You can be surrounded by followers and still feel completely alone. Because connection online is often shallow. It scratches the surface but never really touches the soul. You share something deep, and people double tap it, scroll past, move on. And you're left holding that tiny ache, that question. Did anyone really understand what I meant? It's like trying to hug someone through glass. You can see them, but you can't feel them. That's why some people keep posting, because maybe, just maybe, this time, someone will feel it. But here's the paradox. The more you post, the more disconnected you can start to feel. Because when your identity becomes tied to an audience, you lose the quiet parts of yourself that don't perform, the moments that are just yours. And that's the tragedy of constant sharing. It teaches you to outsource your sense of self. You start living for the story instead of the experience. Your life becomes content instead of memory. There's nothing wrong with posting. It's human to want to share. But when sharing becomes the only way you feel real, that's when it starts to hurt you. Because life isn't meant to be constantly witnessed. Some things are meant to be felt, not filmed. You can almost trace the emotional pattern. Post, validation, high, crash, repeat. It's like emotional caffeine. It keeps you awake, but it never truly satisfies. The cycle creates what psychologists call emotional burnout. You start to feel detached, numb, like nothing online hits the same anymore. The likes stop meaning anything. The comments blur together. You scroll and scroll, but nothing fills that quiet emptiness inside. That's when people start posting even more. Because the silence between posts feels unbearable. They crave the noise, the notifications, the sense of existence that comes from being noticed. But deep down, what they really crave isn't followers, it's witnesses. People who see them, not their feed, not their highlight reel, but them. Sometimes, people post everything, not because they're obsessed with attention, but because they're terrified of invisibility. Being unseen feels like death to the soul, and in a world where everyone's talking, staying silent feels like disappearing. So they overshare to stay alive, to mark their place in the digital crowd, to whisper, I was here. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. Maybe it's just human, because every one of us, no matter how confident we pretend to be, just wants to feel like we matter somewhere. There's beauty in that too. Posting everything online isn't always insecurity. Sometimes it's hope. Hope that someone will relate. Hope that your mess will make someone else feel less alone. Hope that your story might mean something beyond the screen. And sometimes it does. A stranger resonates with your caption. A friend reaches out. A comment says, "I needed this." And for a moment, the internet feels like home again. Because even through all the noise, humanity still finds a way to reach out, pixel by pixel, heart by heart. But the real healing starts when you no longer need to post to feel seen. When you can live a moment and let it just exist. No photo, no caption, no proof, just presence. When you start to trust that a moment still matters, even if no one else knows it happened. That's freedom. And that's what the people who post everything are really searching for. Not fame, not attention, but peace. The peace of not having to explain yourself to the world. The peace of knowing that your worth doesn't need witnesses. Because the truth is, the most sacred moments in life rarely make it online. The tear that falls when no one's watching. The laugh that catches you off guard. The silence between two people who finally understand each other without words. Those are the moments that make you, not the ones that trend. And maybe that's the quiet message hidden in all this posting. A reminder that the more we chase being seen, the more we forget to truly see ourselves. You don't need to post everything to prove that you're living. Sometimes, the most meaningful parts of life are the ones that no one ever sees. Still, I get it. It's hard to let go of the habit because posting gives you a sense of purpose, a rhythm, a pulse. It's like saying, I'm still part of the story. But maybe the goal isn't to stop posting. Maybe it's to post from a place of wholeness instead of emptiness. To share because you want to, not because you need to. To post without seeking applause, without chasing meaning, without performing. To let your online self be an extension of your real one, not a replacement. Because at the end of the day, people who post everything online aren't broken. They're just trying to belong. They're just trying to fill in the silence that life left behind. They're trying to find pieces of themselves in pixels and comments and connections that sometimes feel real enough to hold. But you don't need to be seen to be real. You already are. You don't need to be followed to be worthy. You already were. And maybe that's what we all need to remember, that the internet doesn't define us. It just reflects the parts of us that are still learning to heal. So next time you see someone posting every little thing, don't roll your eyes. Look closer. You might just be watching someone trying to keep themselves alive in the only way they know how. And if that's you, if you're the one posting every moment, every thought, every feeling, I hope you know this. You don't have to prove your existence. You don't have to earn visibility. You're allowed to live a beautiful life that no one ever double taps. Because real life isn't about being seen. It's about being felt. And maybe someday, you'll put the phone down mid-sunset. You'll take a deep breath and realize that the sky doesn't need an audience to be beautiful. Neither do you. Because the truest parts of you don't live in pixels or captions. They live in the quiet moments that never get posted. And maybe that's the most poetic thing about being human. We spend our lives trying to show the world who we are, when all along, we were already enough, even in silence.